Holy shit balls. What's doing?
How good's defense? Yeah, fucking not much.
Catch up on Obi-Wan?
Yeah, I was definitely going to make sure that I watched that last night, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, the internet exploded today.
Yeah, it's no place to be falling behind. So
No.
if you can get away with it. So I'm glad I did. Have you seen the third one?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, I'm good. We can speak. We can speak freely. I have to be careful that I'm saying around Lincoln because I'm like, you fucking watch that cunt. What's going on? I never know what you're doing.
Well, I saw him. He posted something about episode 2.
Yeah, I think it took because I couldn't watch 1 or 2 on the opening night because I worked the Bronx, and last week was so fucked. And I'm like, I'm not going to have any energy when I come home. And then I knew that I wouldn't be able to watch it during the day with the kids, so I watched it Saturday night. And he was going to come around, but like Sarah actually had the flu, and I wouldn't be surprised if we all had it. And then Sophie had hand, foot, and mouth. Or we think it was pretty fucked up either way. And so he's really keen to come over, and I'm like, all right, just so you know, because you don't like germs and stuff. You're cool. Like, we're cool if you come and watch and just sit separately. But Sarah's legitimately had influenza A, and Sophie's got hand, foot, and mouth, and the rest of us are pretty much sick or fighting it off. So he's like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, no, fucking. I've actually got an audition on Tuesday, and I've got a workshop on Monday, so maybe I won't. I'm like, cool, man. You watch it, and I'll watch it, and we'll convene after. So, yeah, he said nothing either way about watching episode 3, and I can only imagine that he would make contact if he had. So, yeah. As well, I was watching it with Sarah, and like last night, because Maddie just texted me and was like, episode 3, holy fuck, or holy fuck balls, or Jesus Christ, or something. And so I read that out to Sarah, and
I believe it was Jesus period fuck period.
And then we watched it, and then like an hour after we watched it, we're upstairs in the bathroom and get ready for bed, and she's like, so was it Jesus fuck for you? And I was like, what? She's like, the show. And I'm like, oh yeah, it was pretty cool. And she's like, oh, so you didn't, not as much? And I'm like, no. Like, for me to explain my thoughts, I'd have to talk about a lot of history and context. And so
I was actually thinking about it in bed. That's how good it was. I don't.
Top of your wife.
Yeah.
Thinking about it.
She was asleep. And it was the classic meme. That's what I was thinking. What is he thinking? Anakin's like his son. You know. Basically. Oh man, so many amazing things.
Just that opening 5 minutes, I remember when that Boba Fett episode, that the first one that wasn't about him, it was essentially the Mandalorian one with the sword and stuff. And I was like, this is the most Star Wars thing that's ever Star Wars. I think there was just so much lore and mythology and characters and references and blah, blah, blah. And then just sort of classical moments, like obviously a lightsaber fight and then the ships and blah and all that shit. And then the first like 5 minutes of last night, I was thinking the same thing with whatever was going on early. And then all of a sudden we're on fucking Mustafar and then fucking Vader's coming out of his thing, and it shows how fucked up he is. And then like an Inquisitor walks in and talks to Darth Vader, and he's just sitting there like on a throne.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think you've ever been more intimidating than he was sitting down at that moment and just barking out orders. And I know that when I'm like, James L. Jones is back, and I'm like, I'm wondering whether they're going to come out soon and go, this is because, you know, like when Luke Skywalker was in Boba Fett, and they eventually come out and said, that wasn't Mark Hamill talking. That's a computer simulation that's worked out what Mark Hamill would sound like post-Jedi, but pre-Jedi as well. And so it's not actually Mark Hamill doing it. And I'm like, I wonder, because this James L. Jones, he sounded a lot younger than what he did in Rogue One. Because in Rogue One, he sounded old. He sounded good in Rogue One.
Rebels too. When they came back for Rebels, it didn't sound right.
Yeah.
It was just
he sounds like an old James L. Jones, and the guy's
voice.
like late 80s, early 90s, whatever he is. Like it's happening, but he sounded really good last night. So unless it is him and they've tweaked it, or it's just like a simulation, I'm like, if it's a simulation, good, we can use this character.
Yeah, we're
forever.
happy with that.
Yeah, I'm happy.
We're good. Hayden Christensen can have a gig for once.
Yeah. He's like, you're gonna show my face, right? Like, well, I'm gonna put you in a cloak and put you like, I don't know, 50 yards away, and you're like a hologram. a Eurovision, but
or underwater in about 3 kilos of prosthetics.
yeah.
This is what I've wanted ever since episode 3. Just this.
Yeah, like him just walking through a village, just force dragging cunts through the street.
For no reason.
For no reason.
Just begging him to come out. just like, I know you're here. And if I start breaking up necks, you're probably walking
going
to stop them.
Yeah.
And I was like, and if not, well, then at least these people will fear me. And I'm like,
I was almost expecting him to walk out and go, Anakin.
Yeah.
And just feel like, oh, shit.
Yeah. I was too. And I'm like, oh,
but also so scary.
Yeah.
Scared.
Yeah. That, especially that bit at the, like, through the sand, because I read something. I read today, and I thought this guy was going to start paying it out, but he actually summed it up really well. Because I was looking, I'm like, this is like, he's like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. Like he's just walking. And he said Obi-Wan just running when he sees Vader, and Vader not being able to run. Able to run after him is so funny. It also makes sense. Vader's physical capabilities have diminished to the point where he can't even run. He just has to walk. He's not fast. He's a tank. He fights like 1-2. He hammers at Obi-Wan with his lightsaber instead of doing any cool prequel level aerobatics or acrobatics or moves. It's one-handed. He uses the Force to knock things over and drag people around. He uses the Force to overpower Obi-Wan. He's basically a husk of a man being kept alive by his suit and the dark side of the Force. The show displayed that perfectly. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and it does help add more credence to like the less than exciting fight from episode 4 of like.
Yeah, that's true.
Fighting there is a very, very basic fight compared to sort of what we've seen after the prequels and stuff like that.
Yeah, that actually it does marry up because Obi-Wan's so fucking old.
Yeah,
but so he obviously after this series he's meditated a lot more, so he's a lot more calmer and zen.
Yeah,
as old Ben.
Yeah.
Fuck. So good.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Vader's not running like Nick Fury in Captain Marvel because he's just like, I don't have any fucking knees. I can't run. He's like, I've got metal joints where my knees used to be.
It's so good. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect Vader to be in this episode.
No.
At all. Because I don't read anything. I don't like on purpose. Because I just saw the him breathing at the end of episode 2, and I was just like, this is gonna be good. Like episode,
so good to get a glimpse of him in the final episode.
5 or 6. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's the same Rogue One, and
he's like, you're hiding behind a fucking keg. Snap your neck with the Force.
Yeah,
goodbye.
And then he's just
NPC.
So good, just dragging people, and they're screaming. My God, I have to watch that scene again.
Yeah,
and he's just looking out the window. Like Obi-Wan's looking through the door crack. Oh fuck! Yeah. So good.
That shot at the end, and it's like a lot of the thumbnail images for a lot of articles, but like where you see him through the flames with his hand up. I was like, I'm like, fuck, that's a cool image. Like if that's in a comic book or that's on the front cover, if that's a poster, like that's a fucking iconic image.
And people point out, it's like you can see like the flames in his eyes, like the flames are in his eyes, so it just looks like he's just full of rage,
anger, sort of thing. Yeah,
and I was thinking too, he's probably scared as fuck of the fire.
Yeah,
that's what I was expecting. But then again, he did fucking build his palace on the planet that burnt him to death.
That's true.
So I guess he's like, "Fuck you, fire."
Yeah, he's got some issues. Yeah,
he's got
yeah.
He's like the Hound from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Scared of a fire. Fuck, it was so good. And like I wasn't expecting Leia to be in it as much, but I'm like, that makes. Even though people get shits, I'm like, I can roll with that. If people think it's out of canon, because she's like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, your only hope. Like she knew him, or at least
everyone's
you could
like,
say that she did.
Everyone's saying like, she didn't know, like she was so formal in her me. So I actually went back and watched New Hope last night, and it's like, she has that moment. She has, but there is a moment where there's that whole "you're a little short for a stormtrooper" scene where Luke is rescuing Leia, and he goes, "No, I'm here to rescue. I'm here with Ben Kenobi," and she goes, "Ben Kenobi, let's go!" Which I'd never noticed before. And then there's just that moment at the end where they're escaping on the Falcon and like Luke.
Yeah, because she never talks to him in the film, does she? Yeah.
No, and all she says is, "There's nothing you could have done."
Yeah.
So there's actually nothing sort of in A New Hope that makes you like that proves it one way or the other.
And plus it's like
from a certain point of view.
It's like 15 years after this, isn't it? Or I don't know how old they are.
9 or 10. But like by this point, yeah, like that's the thing. And I would
as
like
a kid, if you
this.
haven't seen someone for 8 years, and you hang
she's
out
gonna
with
know
them
this
for
I got
guy
into a fight with someone on
ideally a
Facebook.
week.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't tell you the first and last names and the faces of my parents' friends that I met when I was 10.
Yeah.
No.
Granted, maybe if they were Jedi who saved me from kidnapping, I might. But
yeah, a little bit more. But at the same time, you don't see him for a week, but you grow up and you're on that path to becoming a senator. Like a mum's talking her up. Her dad is who he is with the resistance, all that sort of shit. Like she's going to be a little bit more sort of mission focused. So the idea when she's like, hey, you're the only one that can help us. And probably be told about, well, he's probably going to like fuck off at the end of this and go, I can't ever see you again because we're not about attachment or whatever.
Yeah.
And then so by the time he sacrifices himself, she's not going to have the same sadness. Like, okay, Luke knew him for 3 days and is crying, but also Luke's like, crying out for some kind of other father figure, finds out that, he's the bookkeeper for all the secrets of his dad and all this sort of stuff. So it was very emotional. So
Luke also never cried when he saw his burnt adopted parents.
yeah, he just
like
turned
just
away.
their charred corpses and went, oh,
Uncle Owen was a
okay,
dick.
let's go to the spaceport. Okay, bye. I got nothing left for me here.
Yeah.
I'll just leave their corpses to rot.
Fucking hell.
So I saw someone
I didn't have
way
a
to
problem
make the
with-
show not about Obi-Wan, and I was like, it's literally a show about Obi-Wan protecting the twins.
Yeah, I
Like,
saw that.
Literally, the only thing that would ever make Obi-Wan leave Tatooine and leave Luke unprotected is Leia in danger. Like that's literally the only thing he would ever leave Tatooine for.
Yeah.
And if anything, this first episode kind of shows that by him being on Tatooine, it's causing more attention than him not being there. And like Luke is quite clearly in no danger, really. Like, yeah.
He kind of leads the Empire the Empire away from Luke.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Vader would be on Tatooine.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, it was brutal seeing that sort
fucked
of
up.
young Jedi just like strung up. I was like, fuck, okay, all right. I'm sure if it wasn't Disney, they would have had him hung by the neck.
Yeah,
No, it's Disney, so let's.
That even just that shot like takes me back to the village one, something you just said, Brennan, and where he's walking through, and then like he obviously senses Obi-Wan, and you just see like he's staring and he like turns.
And I'll bet,
fuck, that's fucking scary.
I sense something I haven't felt since.
Presence I've not felt since. That time
You
I
watched
nearly
it last
set the
night.
cunt on fire.
Would have been a good. Yeah, I feel like every time it finishes, Phantom Menace pops up as next to watch. I'm like, oh, I could skip through 3/4 of that movie.
Yeah.
I wonder if Disney Plus will ever upload the anti-cheese edit.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
The straight to Tatooine cut, and meet Anakin, then straight to the battle.
Yeah.
No Jar Jar, no pod race.
Yeah.
That's all they needed to do.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't even know where to next. It'll be so good.
Yeah, and halfway through, like someone said, it wasn't even out a week ago, and now we're already halfway through the season.
Yeah.
Just fucking mental.
Man, like obviously it won't happen, but I'm happy for him to go for 3 seasons. Like,
well,
so much fun.
Before they ever announced the title, I honestly, because like the Han Solo movie was just called Solo, and I some reason I thought they were going to go, and the fact that he gets rid of the Obi-Wan name and he becomes Ben, so I honestly thought they were going to call it Kenobi. And then when they called it Obi-Wan, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what, like, story-wise, why that title is going to matter. And I'm like, could they almost just rename it? Like, is season 1, instead of the show being called Obi-Wan Kenobi, is season 1 almost called Obi-Wan Kenobi? And then you sort of move on and, does the next one, can you ever get to a stage where this show is just called, or in a way, Kenobi sort of thing? Like the fact that he gets to episode 4 and he's like, oh, that's a name of not now. He also bullshits for a living, but the idea that he says to someone who doesn't know any different, oh, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. And then when you watch just the movies, you go, yeah, you haven't heard that name in probably 20 years. Now it's like, no, you heard it a fair chunk 9 years ago. And
Mm.
he ages a lot in 9 years.
Yeah. Something. When he went into the fire, and I'm like, oh, is this how you get really old?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Palpatine.
Yeah. Is this how people get old in that galaxy? And just burn them horrifically?
He's got to get a house at some point. When you see him, like when he takes Luke back to his place in A New Hope, he's in one of those little like stone domey.
Oh, yeah.
hut somewhere. So he's got to get a house at some
Yeah,
point.
he's upgraded. Yeah. He's got to take. And what did he do with that lightsaber? You know, where did he put Anakin's when he unburied that from the sands as well?
Oh yeah, that was cool because I'm like, oh, there has to be 2 here. Yes, there is 2.
Yeah.
So
and then it
I'm like,
makes
do you take that with him? Do you go and fight Anakin with his own and like double it up? Like,
I was actually thinking that.
It's like the last time I saw you,
episode
I
6.
took this from you when I cut your fucking limbs off.
the double
like
saber like Anakin had against
it makes what Rey did at the end of Skywalker like even worse, that it's like that fucking lightsaber was buried in Tatooine for like 10 years, like just because Kenobi was trying to hide it. So what does Rey do? She goes and reburies it in the fucking sand right at the end, and I'm just like,
it's like a totem. Like every time someone puts sand on it, Anakin just like gets the shivers.
Yeah,
it's Jumanji,
like forever tormented in the afterlife.
It's a Jumanji lightsaber.
Yeah.
Drums. Shit happens. Yeah. How much do you reckon Obi-Wan stinks though? Yeah. Like he's wearing the same clothes for 10 years. Literally since Luke and Leia were born, he's been wearing that.
Well, even that
he lives in a desert, no rain. Where's he wash his clothes?
Yeah, the ball sack is going to rip.
It's like you've taken off your Jedi tunics because this is a lot shorter. Like it comes, hits like his calves as opposed to like flowing like a cape, and the rest of it don't look like regular Jedi tunics. So if you're trying to disguise yourself, you've kind of went for like the cut price version of the costume that you already had. But I just
imagined it was just shitty compared to what he was.
Just worn
shit.
But I'm like, is this going to...
moment I was trying to figure out, I was discussing with Craig because he came around to watch it, and it was like, when that Jawa is like, oh, we salvaged that crashed Jedi ship out, blah, 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 and found some stuff. And it's like, and he has a belt. And it's like, okay, is that Obi-Wan's ship that he abandoned? And is that Obi-Wan's belt? Or was it the young Jedi's ship that was there? I don't know, because it looked like Obi-Wan's belt. And he kind of had a moment with it, but it could just be because it was Jedi robes.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I'm like, oh, I really want you to sort of, obviously, he has his proper look back by the time A New Hope rolls around. And I'm like, is this going to be like your classic sort of Disney Plus, deconstruction, reconstruction like they've done with the Marvel heroes, where it's like, we're not going to give you your full outfit, or you're not going to get your full sort of power set until the end of the season. I'm like, well, he's already got it. And for the first 2 episodes, he didn't have his lightsaber, or he doesn't turn it on, and almost didn't turn it on for a full third one. And I'm like, are we going to wait 4 episodes before you turn it on? And then are we not going to get to the 6th episode before you actually like wear the costume again? And like
the only kind of jizz moment that I think they missed was when Anakin blasted his, Vader blasted his lightsaber out, the Vader saber, and then Obi-Wan could have, like in that far distance shot, brought out his.
I said the same thing.
But they didn't do that. Yeah.
No, it's like he could have been like that challenge, but instead he ran away and then used it as a nightlight like 10 seconds later.
And blinds himself.
Yeah.
But no, it kind of fits into where Obi-Wan's more sneaky in the Death Star.
Yeah. And he's like, I feel like that was good in the first couple of episodes, because it was just like, oh, there's a couple of moments he could have like lit up his lightsaber, but it would have given everything away. So he's trained himself not to use it, not to rely on it. He's using blasters and stuff like that.
And deception.
So uncivilized.
So that's Vader being like his body being burnt after like Return of the Jedi. And then it's the Force Ghost. And it's Obi-Wan saying to Yoda, he's like, that smell brings back memories. And Yoda's like,
that's
dude.
That's hilarious.
Just the smell of burnt Skywalker in the evening.
It was a cool 2-shot. Like someone had put it up on Twitter, and it was, might have even just said dude as well. And it was that shot of Vader just holding out his lightsaber and with the glove, obviously. And then it partnered it up with the first time we got like a clear image of Luke doing that in Mando at the end of season 2.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because we'd seen him in like the security footage, but the first time you actually see it properly up close, and it was just like the forearm, his hand, and the blade going out to the right, down to the right sort of bottom right corner, and it was exactly the same. And it was, I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. Like, especially when both are Disney Plus shows, it's not like one's a movie and one's not. For the first time you see that image of a Skywalker holding that it's almost an exact replica. So yeah, that was kind of cool. Just funny. I think there's been so many things like that are fixed up a lot. If anyone had any problems with, there's so many people bitching after like the first 2 episodes about, like you said, which is weird. After 24 hours before I got to watch it, people were like, oh God, this is moving so slow. There's hardly even any Obi-Wan in it. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I wonder how that's going to work. And I watched it and I'm like, it is entirely about him. What the fuck are these people talking about?
He wasn't in it for a little at the start, but then once he's in it, he's in it.
Yeah, but it wasn't like a Boba Fett sort of situation where like he's not in an episode. And so I was like, okay,
it's
what's
like a
going
bunch
on?
of stuff is happening without him.
Yeah.
Cool
and then
people.
Like, oh, I was a bit iffy on episode 2. It sort of dragged on for me a bit and a bit wonky in a few areas. But then like come episode 3, I'm like, oh yeah, like I think, but that's a long 5 days of, stupid Star Wars fans are bitching on. And then you get to this one, you're like, yeah, calm the fuck down. And there was one, I saw a tweet and it was, and the guy said, oh, this is Star Wars creators after episode 3. And it was to the fans or to the haters. And it was Russell Crowe and Gladiator going, are you not entertained? And I'm like, yeah, this is actually, yes.
I've enjoyed the whole lot. Like I purposely went, just enjoy this because this is probably the best it's going to get for a long, long time. And the canon stuff, just try to ignore it until later.
Yeah.
And if any, and I couldn't like immediately think, I was trying to build parallels. That's a bit like, I couldn't do that with Origins, obviously, because it wasn't made by the same people, but it was awful. But this, I still can't actually think of anything that ruins a canon.
Well, and I think for me is the Inquisitor until we find out what the go is with the Inquisitor.
But that happened. Like you look at a lot of the games have Inquisitors, and they have a lot of these. Yeah, it's just weird because he's the Grand Inquisitor, and he's the same species as the Grand Inquisitor we see in Rebels that takes place in about 5 years from this, and he dies there. He dies in that. So it's weird to be like, oh, okay, so there's another Grand Inquisitor who's the same species, looks the same, has the same little black bubbles on his ears and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but like everyone said, fucking if Darth Maul can survive being cut in half, then I'm sure he can handle a saber through the gut. Although it does cheapen Qui-Gon's death because you're like, oh, that's like literally how Qui-Gon died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considering it was in the previously on, and then Obi-Wan he had 2 nightmares about it.
Yeah.
And then at the end, that's how the bad guy dies. And you're like, he's going to come back. And, you've shown us why that death should matter. And now it's not. But yeah. And if he is dead, then why have him look like that in the first place? Like, wouldn't it just be too coincidental in a galaxy of millions of different species that, it just so happens that in the same 5-year period, 2 guys that looked and sounded exactly the same, both took on the same rank within the same organization. But
when Reva's obviously, aiming to become the new Grand Inquisitor. So that's the only thing that I haven't, but I'm like, well, there's 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Because I think the, what was that last video, the PlayStation game called where you're a Jedi?
Fallen
Order?
Fallen Order, yeah.
Yeah. There's the sisters in that, and they have, like, they're all stolen from, like, the dark side. And they're, taken as
7th sister and 3rd sister and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I never got that. Do I just forget about that? Because I didn't get that feel. I didn't stick in my memory, at least watching Rebels and all that, the Inquisitors, that a good chunk of them were Force sensitive or from the Jedi Order that sort of turned. Like, I got the feeling that, hey, maybe one of them was, but for the most part, they were just the most highly trained, essentially, assassins.
Yeah, I thought the same thing because that's why they had to cheat with their lightsabers and have the little rotatey thing.
Yeah.
Fucking use them as helicopters, which is still one of the weirdest things Star Wars has ever done.
Yeah. The fact that like Reva's sensitive and then the Asian bloke's sensitive, and you get the feeling that most of them, except the Grand Inquisitor's not. Or is he?
No,
I can't remember.
he is
he?
because
Okay.
he was, well, at least the one in Rebels was because he was previously he was a Jedi Temple Guard.
Right. Okay.
That turned to the dark side. And there was that moment where in the first episode where Reva takes a swipe at the young Jedi guy in the bar and it taps his shoulder.
That's right. He stopped.
And
of course,
you see him go out and sort of stop her from slicing him in half. But yeah, like the Asian Inquisitor guy is the same Inquisitor from season 2 of Rebels, but I don't know if like the green one with the tentacles. I don't know whether that's the seventh sister from Rebels or not. That was voiced by Sarah Michelle Gellar. They look kind of similar, but kind of not. Yeah. But then the same with the Asian dude with the big hat on, which seems racist now that they've cast an Asian with one of those hats on. But okay, well, it's not my fault. So yeah, I don't know. We'll just wait and see, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I was stoked.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it. I think the first just Vader was in it for so much. My mouth was just open. I wasn't even listening to what he was saying. Yeah. Like barely.
I'm going to go back and watch it again.
Yeah, I definitely did again.
I can't believe they're doing this. This
is what I wanted. Like, that first 5 minutes, like I just kept taking myself out of watch. I'm like, this is among the best he's been, just because this is like everything he's supposed to be.
This is Vader in his prime.
Like it is like he's not doing a lot and he's still effective. And that's what they like. He doesn't need to be out there like doing flips and shit and all kinds of crazy shit. He doesn't need, like, even that scene where he's walking through the town, he didn't say one word from the moment you saw his boots to the moment that he was chasing or he left the scene. He didn't say one word. And I'm like, I get that this guy he's a horror figure in this.
Yeah.
Like he is a tool.
Was it that thing you read before, or was it maybe something else where it just describes him? He's a tank.
Yeah.
He's like Michael Myers
and stuff like that. He's a tank. He's an immovable force.
But he never did a lot, but he's so iconic. And, menacing.
It shows there's a reason he was so feared, and we've never really seen, except for that sort of cool scene from Rogue One. It's like we've never really seen why he's so feared across the galaxy. And
that's what you need. You need that one. You only need that one scene. It's like, that's enough. And I know I've referenced it before. There's that one comic panel. I'd love to see. Maybe it was the end of the comic and they never actually show what happened. But there's some scene where like he's essentially in this. It's almost like a crater size sort of area, and he's surrounded on the high ground, hardly enough, by a bunch of like rebel soldiers, and they're all pointing blasters at him, and they're like, "We've got you surrounded," and he's like, all I see is dead men or something. I forget that he says something else. Or all I can smell is fear and all I see is dead men. But there's like literally 200 people with blasters. And he still was like, I'm going to fucking murder every single one of you. And I'm like, yeah, I believe that you would. I really want to read that and see what happened and just see how you managed to do it. And I want to know, like, they all fire on you and you just manage to hold the blast off or something, or you just sit there and
deflect
I don't know.
The force and the saber.
Because like as cool as that Rogue One
Rebels, when he's he majestically descends on the top of a TIE fighter, piloting it with the force.
Yeah.
Lightsaber in hand as his cloak just, majestically flows in the wind as he lowers down. Everyone's just there just going.
Yeah. And it didn't seem like too much. It wasn't like, oh God, I get it. Like they're giving this iconic still figure some really crazy shit to do. It seemed, I'm like, no, that's just intimidating because he was still standing still doing nothing. But yeah. Oh, and even like the cannon stuff. God, we'd be here for an hour talking about it. But
absolutely.
Like there's just so much like stuff that I'm like, oh, does that? No, hang on. That not only doesn't break this line of canon, and I'm talking about a book, and I'm like, it actually adds more to that book, which is set 10 years before this show, and to a certain scene in Rebels, which is set 5 or 6 years after this show. I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like intentionally or unintentionally. And I'm going to say most part it's unintentional. They do thank Dave Filoni, and no doubt they have to get the story. What do they call them? The I don't know. But the creative team and go
the
through
fact checkers.
Yeah, basically, yeah, and make sure that it all sort of fits. And no doubt it's like movies, top tier canon, then shows, live action, and animated. And it's like, yeah, books and comics, they're all canon. But, if we need to correct some, if we need people to go which one's which, it's like, well, obviously the moving stuff. But it still somehow fits, which I appreciate considering they've been messing around with canon now for like 10 years. They've still managed to make all the books and comics, animated shows that were part of Fox, not Disney stuff, and then with their Disney stuff and with the new movies. I'm like, oh, someone's doing their homework, and I'm sure Dave Filoni needs a big sleep after this because he's.
Well, I was surprised to see like his name's not on it anywhere. He doesn't get a credit.
No, he's only like a special thanks. I saw it at the end of episode 1 or 2, but it was like special thanks to Dave Filoni, and I'm like, yeah, he might not actually.
I thought for sure he'd get consultant or even a producer credit or something like that. But Favreau neither. Like Favreau hasn't got any official.
End of episode 1, it comes up and said story by Stuart Beattie and then screenplay by. And I was like, what the fuck? Because that's he's an Australian. He's the guy that wrote and directed Tomorrow and the War Began.
Yeah, I had to Google that because I was like, I recognize that name. Yeah. The fuck do I recognize that?
Like he's done a bunch of other stuff.
I was like, oh shit.
First Pirates movie, and then he's done a shit ton of other stuff. He's just done that movie with Matthew Riley as well. But I said to Lincoln, like, did you know Stuart Beattie? And he's like, nah. He goes, I remember him being down here like 2 years ago, and Lincoln talking to someone who was working with him at the time, and he said, oh, he's just he's having conversations with Lucasfilm. Link's like, fuck, what? That's massive. He goes, yeah, he doesn't know, or I don't know, or we can't tell you, whatever the situation. He goes, it's big. It's a big project that they're doing, and it's like it's Star Wars. Every project's big, but like obviously back then they still hadn't announced that it was coming. The script for an Obi-Wan movie had been done for a couple of years, but they pulled the pin after Solo, and the idea, it's like, hey, you come on and adapt this into a 6 to 8 episode series. It's like, fucking hell, it's like
a 6-hour movie. That for me, that's what I was so excited about it being in this format.
Oh, I'm so glad that it's a show. Like otherwise, it's like, I watched.
It's better than a movie almost.
Yeah, let it breathe and like give me more Ewan McGregor just staring off into the distance in the sand, just like thinking about his regrets and stuff. Yeah.
And I think that's. Yeah,
that's on his face when Reva's like at the end of episode 2 when she's like, Anakin's alive. Just that pushing on his face was like,
because it was this moment when, especially, it was that moment, and when Vader's crushing people, just walking up that alleyway. I just thought in Obi-Wan's mind, it's like, and he'd already spoken about how he had to leave his family. And barely remembers his parents. And then essentially he knew Anakin since he was so young. It's his adopted son. And that's the first time I ever really thought about that, as I always thought they were friends, but I didn't think them as like a father-son figure.
I always thought I think I think it might have even been something Dave Filoni said. It's like Qui-Gon was supposed to be Anakin's father, and it didn't happen. And Kenobi never really cared about Anakin as a kid, but then was forced to bring him up, in honor of Qui-Gon. So they were more like brothers than a father and son. But you're right, this really did feel like more of a father and son flick, like connection.
That's what it felt for me in this episode, especially like, what have you become? Like, what he would have been blaming himself just as much, like throughout the entirety of ever since he went dark side, obviously, because he's his master. But fucking hell,
but thinking so good. In the last 10 years, thinking that he's dead and it's done, and just feeling guilty about that, and then realizing he's alive and he's been fucking killing cunts for 10 years.
Yeah. And all the kids that are force sensitive, he's been collecting, and God knows, doing God knows what.
Yeah.
He's dropping them into the lavas of Mustafar, just like, see you, kids.
Yeah. The only thing I hope that I try and tie it into friggin' the last, was it the Rise of Skywalker or whatever, where it was all like some master plan of the Emperor's to make his clones or whatever. I'm like, please don't connect it to any of that. Just keep it clear of any of that bullshit.
I mean, I know we're A New Hope, pre-original trilogy at the moment, but I remember joking to you, I don't know what stage, maybe it was post-Mandalorian season 2, and I'm like, wouldn't it just be hilarious if like after and following the, backlash or whatever around Rise of Skywalker, and how it's just like, what the fuck are we doing? Where did any of this come from? The meme of poor old fucking Oscar Isaac going, somehow Palpatine survived. I'm like, what, that guy we haven't spoken about in this entire trilogy so far? Yeah, cool. Him. And it's like, then you get Mando, and it's like, yeah, it's the sort of pseudo sequel to, episode 6. It's elsewhere, but it's still a sequel. That like all of what's happening now post the original trilogy and timeline wise, it's slowly skewing off into like an alternate reality to what episode 7, 8, and 9 are. And they'll just be like, oh no, those aren't canon actually. Yeah, those were fun, like what if movies that we spent $700 million making, and we're actually just going to go now and make what this should have been. It's like, unfortunately, Carrie Fisher's not with us, so we can't do it. And who knows what we're going to do with the other two. It's like, obviously that's not going to happen, but it's like at the moment they're making so much content. Even Book of Boba Fett's like, maybe not as good as Mando and whatever, but still pretty cool. And then they're going to make Ahsoka, and it's like they're making all this other stuff set within the first sort of 5-10 years after episode 6. It's like, yeah, it doesn't really feel like it's building towards the new order. And everything else you had, like it or love it, in 7, 8, and 9. And it's like, oh geez, what are the chances you're just going to write off that $700 or $800 million as a failed experiment, and just try and take them out of everyone's minds, and in 10 years give us a real episode 7 or something? Like, that's never going to happen, nor do I really want it to happen. But maybe you can make them better by making everything, all the gaps in between, make them.
It wouldn't surprise me. Sense. I don't think they would, but it wouldn't surprise me if they remade the originals even and had Ewan McGregor as old Ben and all that. I don't want that to happen.
No.
But I remember loving 7 when it came out, going, this is a great base for a boost. But
Ruin Johnson was when I shit the bed. And then,
he fucked the entire thing.
And then JJ just spent all of 9 trying to course correct, and it just didn't work.
You can't.
You
can't unshit a bed.
Yeah.
Well, then you read that, what they reckon the Colin Trevorrow script was going to be for episode 9, which was written based off what episode 8 was and following on from 7. And it was like, oh yeah, cool. It all made it make a little bit more sense, and it tied into the prequel trilogy as well. Went all the way, and it was initially titled Jewel of the Fates, and I'm like, oh, what a great way to wrap up everything and bring everything full circle. And it took us back to Coruscant, and the Sith Temple new Sith Temple for Palpatine was built, I think, underneath the Jedi Temple, or underneath the Senate, or wherever it was, somewhere key in Coruscant, and all this really cool shit. And then they just went, oh no, that's working too much off Last Jedi. People hate Last Jedi. Let's rewrite it. Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine. What? Don't worry, everyone loves him. And what, clones, and she is all of the Jedi, and all the Jedi are her, and just fuck it. What about Finn? We were building him up. Just make him scream her name a little bit more. We haven't got time to develop him into a new character. Like,
no, we're too busy inventing Force dyads.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Force healing, and it was like, what? And I think, because did we see a previous screening of Rise of Skywalker? No, I think we only saw 7 together. No, we definitely saw Last Jedi. We definitely saw.
Oh, that's
Jedi
right, because that's the one where I dressed up.
For some reason, I was, because they released the week that Rise of Skywalker released was the same week they released an episode of Mandalorian where Baby Yoda, Grogu, like force healed Mando, or did he force? No, he force healed someone else that was with them. I forget which character.
Oh yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, I think it was second last episode of season 1, and either way, it was like, oh, that seems a bit odd. But it was almost like they were trying to, baby feed to the audience a little bit of like, hey, this is possible before you go and watch this movie where this character who's already been accused of being a Mary Sue all of a sudden can do this insane force power that we've never known about in 8 other films before. So then they have, Baby Yoda do it on a television scale and be like, oh, well, he's 50 and he's obviously knew how to do this. So it's fine. Trust us. It's a thing. Yeah, I don't know. Hey,
yeah.
I've done. The thing is, I've played that in the games. You have Force Dash and Force Heal and all that stuff. So I've known that for over a couple of decades, based on all the old games and stuff. So it wasn't. Obviously, we'd never seen it in a live action, but I wasn't surprised about it.
Yeah.
either.
Yeah,
It
right.
didn't shock me as like a what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like Anakin would have loved that back when you found
Yeah.
or Obi-Wan would have
Or
loved
when he
that
was burning to death.
Yeah, when Obi-Wan was like, cradling Qui-Gon's body and he's like, you must raise the boy. It's like, well,
Yeah.
the force healing there would have helped.
Yeah. Yeah, and mind you, the force healing was just kind of like flesh wounds and shit in games. It's not like you die and bring them back to life.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that it was used like
side,
3 times in that film too.
Yeah,
Twice in the finale. And I'm like, does death mean anything anymore? Like,
and Rey does it fine both times. She heals the snake, and then Ben's just like, I'm going to heal you, and then I'm going to die. Bye.
Fuck. And Kylo Ren was a waste of character too.
Oh my god, the Knights of Ren were a waste.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this thing, or we'll be fucking 9 hours.
Vader's back. That was good.
Vader's back.
Mm.
Where are we? Okay. 95. All right, good to go.
Yeah, baby.
All right.